Hello again, friends, and you are our friends, and welcome back to another edition of Jim Cornette's Drive-Thru right here, wherever it is that you have pulled up to on this cheery and sunny, I'm sure it's cheery and sunny somewhere, day, wherever you are. I'm your host, the great Brian Last, and what I'm going to be doing is reading your questions to this provocateur, this man who causes so much trouble. You send them in for Mr. Jim Cornette, and here he is right now. Is that
I didn't even want to interrupt that because you just fell all over the fucking place with that intro, but I didn't care because it's one of those days. I'm depressed. I'm down. I'm down in the dumps, down in the mouth. I've got a long face.
What's wrong?
I've just realized, I'm often cranky when we do this program, cantankerous even.
I've noticed, yeah.
And it's because one of the things I've got anxiety. I'm always rushing to go do something immediately after this program, even though we record on Sundays when normal people go to their houses of worship and delude themselves and then eat a big meal and then go home and play with their kids or their toys or their fucking Winkies or whatever they play with on Sunday when everybody's having leisure time. But instead, I'm constantly rushing to do something else. And so I'm cranky, and also I've realized another dimension to my cantankerous provocateur, by the way. Where did you pull that one out of?
I pulled that right one out of this drawer right here.
Who did the album Agent Provocateur?
I don't know.
Oh, for God's sake. Now I've lost it, and obviously you wouldn't know. It's classic material.
Well,
but somebody let me know who did Agent Provocateur. Anyway, I've got the anxiety and etc. because Sunday is the morning when I wake up with the twinkling of the birds and the sunshine, and I do my overall list for the things I need to do for the next week. I write down on my notebook paper, there's Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and I have an outline for my week, right? Because I'm not complaining, even though my mother, Mama Cornette, used to say I would complain if you hung me with a brand new rope. But I'm not complaining, but being successful at this age is trying on my patience and my stamina and perseverance. So I've just the outline of the things I have to do for the week. Of course, we record this fine programming that's being listened to by record numbers of people that you keep telling me before we go on the air. It's just ridiculous. I don't even want to think about it because if I thought about that many people listening to us, I'd goddamn have more anxiety. But secondly, besides we record the programs, we do prepare some for the programs. Obviously, not for this program because you're rarely prepared, but I prepare. But also, besides recording, keeping up with Cornette's Collectibles, I know what Overwhelmed is like after the Behind the Curtain release. So I won't say that we're overwhelmed again, but it's getting to be Christmas season. The Incredible Houston's Wrestling Spectacular DVD that went up just Friday is already selling incredibly well, including that Wild Bull Curry versus Johnny Valentine match, but 4 hours of classic Houston wrestling. On DVD from the Masters, licensed from Paul Bosch by Kit Parker Films. Only $15 at JimCornette.com. I don't know how we stay in business with prices this low. But anyway, that's been a big hit. So I've got to keep up with Cornette's Collectibles, not only the shipping of same, but also the stock, the merchandise. Where are those action figures, you say, China? What the fuck, right? Hopefully, by Christmas, we will have more action figures. It depends on China. But keeping the stock, keeping the shipping supplies up. And then there's the television programs and broadcasts that I'm a part of, whether they come here to the castle and shoot such as Dark Side of the Ring, or this year I've been on the NWA and Ring of Honor combined Crockett Cup pay-per-view broadcast. Co-hosted MLW on BN for 4 months. Am now doing the color for the NWA Power Studio program. Did a couple of major conventions, including the Gathering in Charlotte and C2E2 up in Chicago. have been shooting. We'll be shooting next week for another network that I haven't hit yet so far this year. These things require preparation. I don't just show up at these places. I prepare, actually, unlike some other people in my age category and success level where they think they can just coast by. You know, I'm an obsessive preparer, especially when I'm doing color, I'm announcing, I want the paperwork, I want to study, etc.
Who's coasting?
There's that to be factored in. A lot of people coast. You see them all the time when they're at the conventions. They don't even look up when they're signing autographs, or they're on their phone, or they're just taking the money. You know me. If I'm going to jump into that muddy pond, I'm going to go in head first with both feet, and I'm going to enjoy myself. That didn't make a lot of sense, did it? But anyway, so the point is, I do these. I've got to keep up with all this shit, right? All these things going on, and the preparations, and the making of the deals, and et cetera. And of course, I've had personal things this year. We're meeting with some people this week about Stacy's dad's property and things and such, and I'm trying to juggle all this, and I've come to the realization that not only do I have OCD and I need to make these lists, but I feel good when I cross everything off. And also on Sunday mornings when I make these lists, I always write down answer phone calls, answer emails. And I have a separate phone call list and a separate email list of people that I'm supposed to email, or people I don't have the email list as much. I jot a few things down, but that's on the goddamn screen, right? And then I jot down all the people that I have to call on the fucking phone. And I just realized this morning that it's been at least 2 years since I have ever completely crossed everything off my weekly list. I'm always in the weeds. I'm never ahead. It's affecting my OCD, and also with the emails as now as numerous and plentiful as they are, I'm feeling bad because I'm not a good typist, and I look at emails sort of like the visit to the dentist. You got to go when you got to go, but oh God, to confront that. And then the volume and the number of them, and people are mostly being so nice. But so I save, I think I'll answer that sometime. I'll save that. That guy was very nice. I need to answer that.
Mostly?
Well, I need to do a lot of things, but I never do. So then they start getting lost and I think I had an email from so-and-so about something, but it's in there and I'm like, oh, what the fuck? And the phone calls, the point is, I'm afraid I'm offending people's feelings by not returning their emails or returning their phone calls. And the point, I cannot keep up with all this shit. For the first time in my life, Brian, I've had to admit defeat. I cannot keep up with all the things that I have to do, nor ever cross these things off my list. I think that may be why I need therapy.
Wow. That's a big admission.
Either that or I just need to not be so fucking cognizant of people's feelings and give a fuck whether they goddamn get their feelings hurt if I don't call them back or email them back or not. One or the other of those two.
Well, that's the cheaper option.
It's cheaper and it's easier, and I wouldn't have to leave the house.
That sounds like a good option.
But I just hate to disappoint all these people. I feel like I'm letting people down, like I'm blowing them off and kayfabing them and disappointing them. But I don't mean to. What's a boy to do? I just don't know. I'll never be able to keep it. But I tell you what, if any of you wise asses out there have a problem with me not answering your emails or phone calls, and you feel that you need to sue me in any way, shape, or form for non-return of email or alienation of phone message, well, at the least I can do, since I feel bad about letting everybody down, Brian, I guess I could put them in touch with a good lawyer.
It's the least you could do.
It's the least I could do. But since, as they used to say, unfortunately, since we don't know a good lawyer, we'll refer you to Stephen P. Newt. No, ladies and gentlemen,
no.
I jest. I joke. It's merely part of the bit. Ladies and gentlemen, there is no man on earth that I can recommend more highly for a given position. I don't care what the position is. I don't care whether it's a professional position, a personal position, a business position, a missionary position. I cannot recommend anybody more for a position than I can recommend Stephen P. New, the law offices of Stephen P. New at newlawoffice.com, 888-692-8084 for the position of your attorney, your barrister, your legal eagle, your consigliere. Well, no, he's mine. I'm not going to share him. The last thing I want to do is share my consigliere. But ladies and gentlemen, if you have a problem and need to seek the recourse of the American legal justice system, as you know, if you watch the news every day, it is filled with sharks and pitfalls. It's filled with booby traps. It's filled with boobs. And I'm talking about the stupid kind instead of the plump, succulent kind. It's filled with those big holes that they used to dig in the jungle and then put the spiked pits underneath and have those spikes sticking up where when you fall, you will impale yourself and slowly bleed out as your intestines fall out into a heap. And nobody wants heapy intestines, ladies and gentlemen. So if you need to navigate the shark-filled waters and the booby-trapped jungles of the American legal justice system, then Stephen P. New and newlawoffice.com, 888-692-8084, is for you, because after all, he has gotten so many people compensated for the wrongs and injustices done them by these major corporations and these big businesses and these asshole billionaire Republicans that don't give a shit about who they trod on. Well, if you've been trod on, trod back, ladies and gentlemen, and Stephen P. New's feet are big enough to cover the ground that he walks on. And as a matter of fact, if you have people selling horribly disfigured likenesses of you on T-shirts, contact Stephen P. New as well, because he's going to make those people miserable, just like he makes the big pharmaceutical companies, the big oil companies, the big car companies, and anybody else who harms you or your family in any way miserable. Ladies and gentlemen, get even with Stephen. New is for you.
All right, well, let's see if these questions are for you. Obviously, there's a lot of questions about current events, and you've really riled some people up with some of your recent comments, some of your recent reviews.
Yes, I have.
Of AEW and NXT.
Well, they riled me up.
Let me ask you one of them.
Actually, I haven't riled anybody up with anything I've said about NXT, because at least their fans are not so fucking pussy-ish and butthurt sensitive. And maybe it's because maybe AEW, when they say we're inclusive, it not only includes all the fucking nerds and butthurt just pussies, but also all the fucking fans get to get in the ring at some type of time or another. That's why they're all butt, because they hope, well, if we see Marko Stunt or My Little Dog Pockets or all these other fucking clowns, well, they'll just put us in the ring one day. Whereas when you look at NXT, you actually see highly trained athletes. Whether they're particularly good at what they're currently doing or not is subject to debate, but they've been highly trained and they're athletes. Maybe their fans are not so sensitive because I'm not, as Dennis Condrey used to say, striking a nerve.
Well, you really struck a nerve this past week. There are so many questions, I don't even know which one of these to ask you because it covers a lot. Here, I mean, I'll just read you some of the subject lines. Meltzer.
Well, just go ahead and do that then.
Meltzer comparing Stunt to Mysterio, that Stunt Kid, Marco, Jericho, JR, Meltzer, and Trump, Jericho and Stunt, Chris Jericho. I mean, everyone wants to know because obviously after that show, everyone, I shouldn't say everyone, but a lot of people came flying to the defense of Marko Stunt before really anything was said.
Oh, God. Well, it's because they knew. And I replied to a tweet on Twitter, obviously, and I love Chris Jericho. And he's their biggest star, and they're paying him a lot of money. He could have just not said anything, but, and left it alone. And I'm sure the kid's a nice kid, and he's been around the kid. Oh, the kid's a good kid, whatever the fuck. He's trying to encourage. I don't know what the fuck. He's also cashing the check. But he said, well, I remember when people said I was too small to be. Chris, you're still 5'10" and we're 200 and something pounds. And you were actually more jacked when you were 23 and came to Knoxville or whatever than you are now. Yes, people have said Ricky Morton was too small and look how that turned out. But it's still plausible. It's still visually acceptable. It's not ridiculous. And Ricky Morton has 100 pounds on Marko Stunt. It is so, and then Meltzer, and I love Dave too. Poor Uncle Dave. I just worry about whether or not he's, at this point, we be worried that Dave may be the victim of elder abuse? Is somebody not giving him his medication? Because he continues to say, well, they didn't compare him to Rey Mysterio. They said the same thing about Rey Mysterio. And he retweeted Jericho's tweet saying, hey, good for you, kid, live your dream. And they said I was too small and blah, blah, blah. And said, and made the comparison to Rey Mysterio. And I just tweeted, because I know both these guys, and I don't want to fucking cuss them, but goddamn it. I said, goddamn, would you just quit? Would you just quit? It's fucking stupid and ridiculous. No, you can't compare Marko fucking Stunt fuck to Rey Mysterio, who was a tiger mask level like fucking phenomenon and had a cool superhero fucking mask and outfit and bodily. Not when he was in Mexico when he was 14. But if Marko Stunt was ever going to grow up to look like Rey Mysterio does now, he would have done it by now. It's not the same thing. It's a fucking gymnastic kid doing phony bullshit that everybody knows is phony, instead of fucking Tiger Mask or Rey Mysterio. And it's as somebody else tweeted, if everybody gets to live their dream, does that mean because I'm a chiropractor, I can one day be allowed to perform spinal surgery on somebody, even though I don't know how to fucking do it, and it would be ridiculous? Or it's my dream to, as I mentioned, to be Ron Jeremy, but I didn't have the equipment for that. It's a lot of basketball fans' dreams to play in the NBA, and it's as bad. And I'm gonna go ahead and say this: I've stayed away from this fucking kid because it's obvious something's wrong. But it's the people that are encouraging this fucking Marko Stunt foolishness, which is not only embarrassing to the business and just stupid on the face of it, but dangerous for this kid. This fucking superhuman kid. I mean, there's Marko Stunt and these cosplay wrestlers are just fucking stupid, right? But there doesn't seem to be anything wrong, if you know what I'm saying. I haven't said anything about superhuman because there seems to be something wrong. And so I blame he's got to have, there's somebody holding that camera. There's somebody in his life that's in charge of him. They not only let him out of the house, but he let these fucking outlaw mud show promoters book this fucking guy in with the supposed other professionals, and everybody can guess who these people are. The scum of the fucking earth, the scum of the fucking solar system, the real bad, cancerous, contagious, worst of the cosplay, showbiz, performance art, fucking goof wrestling crowd. Work with this kid, book this kid. Somebody's allowing it. Somebody's allowing him to rip his shirt off and jump off shit onto barbed wire. And those people ought to be reported to whoever the fucking local authorities are, wherever the fuck this kid lives. And everybody, oh, look, it's cute. It's him. And they're retweeting it. And they're, he's going to get in a ring and live his dream. Let's just let everybody do it while we're at it. Let's just go find people on the street, and whether they want to or not, herd them into a wrestling ring and start just having matches. And maybe if we can get some of them who are confused and don't know what the fuck's going on, pissed off enough about the whole thing, we could have some shoots. Just random shoots with people, just shuffle people off the street into a fucking ring and fucking whisper something in their ear to make them mad at somebody. Just have random shoots and film that and put that on the internet. And that's pro wrestling. It's the same fucking thing. It's fucking stupid. It's unprofessional. And all the people whether in the business or in some of these people's lives that are encouraging, enabling, or allowing this can suck my fucking teeny little white dick. Fuck you, is what I have to say about whatever the fuck question was you asked that got me started on that whole thing. God damn. Oh, and Dave and Jericho. Fuck, guys, come on. Chris, I know they're paying you a lot of money, and I'm sure he's a nice kid.
Jim Ross, too.
They're paying Jim Ross probably even more money, and I'm sure he's a nice kid. But goddamn, somebody speak up. It's like this is getting as bad as the Republicans enabling Trump and saying nothing and turning their backs, no matter how bad it gets, how stupid it gets, how dangerous it gets, how criminal it gets, how embarrassing it gets, all the fucking verbal effluvia that comes out of his fucking dick liquor. The Republicans, few now have started, and most of the ones that are retiring because they know the goddamn Republican voters are so fucking stupid and gullible and fucking criminal-minded or goddamn fucked up in their own way that they won't reelect them if they tell people the truth that this fucking guy is a goddamn criminal and a liar and a psychopath and a fucking whatever the fuck else he is. Just pick the description. It's the same thing now with people in wrestling that you want to have respect for, that will not raise their hand and say, no, fuck no. I don't even care whether people buy tickets to this or not. I will not be involved in this. I will not dignify this with my presence. I will not goddamn just go along with it. And because somebody's a nice guy, I will say that this is just all right, and that this is not embarrassing, and this is not stupid, and that this is not disrespectful and insulting to fucking wrestling, whether it be the previous generation of the invisible hand grenade. Now the invisible man is old news, because now we basically have goddamn promoters and supposed professional wrestlers that will dignify the presence of these cosplay fucks and these phony outlaw mud show idiots with their presence. And we have people in the lives of challenged people who will enable them to take part in this shit for their own fucking mysterious reasons. And nobody's just going to goddamn, no, hold the fucking phone, pump the brakes. Nobody is going to say this. Who the fuck needs a job that bad? Fuck, the more I think about it. And whether it's spending a billionaire's money at that level, or whether it's these fucking mud shows in front of 72 people where they're crashing through light tubes and severing each other's arteries and major nerves and tendons because they fantasize that they can do this shit the way it's supposed to be done. And these delusional fucks have other delusional fucks that look up to them. Charlie Manson had his fans too. At least he was good at what he did. And they will fucking pay and buy a ticket or stream the video or do whatever the fuck and say, oh. And then the rest of them all in the middle with their little, everybody can participate because this is all inclusive and we don't want anybody to feel uncomfortable and we want everybody to be just happy and all come and look at us do our art. You fucking prissy little fucking jerks. You are the ones who have allowed and fostered the idea and encouraged the idea that all these fucking morons on Twitter that I can't keep track of blocking because they come so fast should have the attitude, oh, it's wrestling. It's supposed to be stupid and funny and dumb and silly. And everybody knows it's fake. They think that's okay. And that's the way you're supposed to look at the business because you pieces of shit that ought to be tied to a fucking rotten, worm-infested fucking log and set on fire with not even the good gasoline, but just a little lighter fluid so the fucking flames would burn less hot and take longer to melt your fucking disease-ridden skin. You ought to be fucking burned at the fucking stake for making these goddamn susceptible idiots think that that's a positive way to look at the wrestling business. whether you're throwing people around with your dicks or deciding whether you want to have a dick or not, or who's got a dick, or who used to have a dick, or let's quantify all these people. Fuck all of you. I'm sorry, but I'm not going to go along, nor do I have to, nor will I ever, with the wrestling is supposed to be funny, stupid, and silly, and everybody can play. Fuck all of you. What was the question?
I actually have moved past that question, but there's another one here, and this is one of the things I've heard. People who say, well, Jim, what do you think of this? Trying to shove it in your face. Let me ask you. This was sent into CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from CJ. Apparently, the tag match with Marko Stunt and Jungle Boy versus the Lucha Brothers actually grew AEW's viewership for the segment. What does Jim think about this?
Well, first of all, I don't believe it. Secondly, it's the fucking ratings, and everybody knows that that's a work.
But also, for the record, it grew the audience 1.4%. That's
so what was that?
1.4%
how many
of a million people
is that allegedly supposed to be?
If the viewership's 1 million and it's 1.4, I don't know if that's how you do it.
Okay. We've covered ratings here on the program before, but basically, yes, there's a number of boxes, as they used to call them. I don't know if that's the current term, where people are actually wired and give real-time feedback, right? That is it's like the fucking polls. Plus or minus a fucking margin of error of 3%, right? If two people with boxes switch over, and then that it's just it's an imperfect method that the television industry has always used to try to figure out a way to set ad rates. We don't ever know with any program how many people are actually watching it or not watching it. But since every program is judged by the same fucking deal, they accept it. And some get better and some get worse treatment because of it. But when you're talking about 1%, it's fucking ridiculous. Nobody knows what I was watching in my home. I've talked about the time when I told the TV sales rep here at WBKI in Louisville that he knew that our business was a work, and now I knew his business was a work because they had a transmitter problem, didn't send the first 15 minutes of OVW to the cable system to broadcast, just sent it out over the antenna, over the airwaves, and that was highest rated quarter hour of the fucking program. It's bullshit. Maybe people looked at it as a car wreck. Maybe people turned it on and said, well, why is that child wrestling these fucking masked people? But no, a fucking variance of 1% in a fucking 15-minute quarter hour does not mean that anybody tuned into Marko Stunt on purpose. That's not how television works. That's not how wrestling works. If you have The Rock and you get a bump of 600,000 viewers, that's because you had The Rock. If you get a change of 1% in whatever your rating is from one quarter to the other, that means a couple people got up to take a shit.
All right. Well,
I'm sorry. That's just, we could get Bill Barron's on here to fucking do 30 minutes on that same thing, and he would end up with that same line.
Our next question, Jim, was sent in via Twitter using the hashtag CornyDriveThru. This is from Jesse in NJ, hashtag LFGM. That's let's fucking go Mets. That's what that is.
Oh, okay.
The F is unnecessary. I don't know why Pete Alonso did that, but what's your reaction to Bruce Prichard working for the WWE again, and how do you think he will do?
Oh, my God. Is another thing. Bruce is a little younger than me. I think he's a year younger than me. And I don't think I'm divulging any secrets that I believe he's talked about this. He, several years ago, had a couple of heart attacks. Right?
Yeah, no, he's talked about it. Yeah.
And he's got kids, and he's got a wife, and he has a house in Houston. And did I mention he's almost as old as me? I don't know why he took the fucking job that he took on the creative team, whatever he's been doing on it, because we don't hear of anything of that anymore. It was last February. He joined the creative team. We don't hear nothing anymore. But now it's for the same reason. I don't know why Bischoff took the fucking job that he just got fired from. And not only if the fact that you can get fired at any time and you've moved or at least temporarily moved or moved yourself, even if you haven't moved your family and you've gone through all this shit and, oh, you're done. Okay, see you later. I would choke some motherfucker. Right? I was in Connecticut for 3 years and hated every second of it. But if they'd have brought me up there and 6 months later, they'd have said, no, you got to leave, I'd have killed somebody on the way out. All the fucking aggravation it was to get there. I don't know why anybody wants any of these jobs. You're working for a publicly traded corporation. It can be a publicity stunt. Well, let's fire this guy and hire this guy. I don't know why they want the stress. I don't know why they want the pressure. I don't know why they want the travel. I don't know why that they. If I wanted to be friendly with Vince, I'd fly up there a couple times a year and hang out with him at the pool, but I wouldn't work for him. I don't know why anybody at this stage of their life wants that much pressure and stress into something that ultimately they're going to do a lot of work on but have no control over. They're just going to do what Vince tells them to do, ultimately, or what Vince wants, or et cetera. We've gone over that many times. So I don't know why anybody would want any of those fucking jobs. If they were 30 years old, fine. Maybe fine. I couldn't do it, but you know, I could understand other people want to do it. But no, I don't get it. It's not, the wrestling business is not fun anymore. It's not like, you know, Jim Crockett calls you and says, hey, I'd like you to take the book in the Carolinas, or you're figured into one of the territories in your home 4 or 5, 6 nights a week. And you can, you know, you're either the booker or a top guy and you can pick your schedule, or, you know, that used to be the ultimate job in wrestling, when you could either be part owner of a promotion or the booker. You were making the most money of anybody on the roster, whether you were a wrestler or not. If you were the booker, you were still making more money than the boys. And if you were a wrestler, you were making money on top of that. And you could potentially buy into the fucking promotion. As Bockwinkel did in Houston, as the Briscoes did in, you know, a lot of times top guys were given 5 or 10 points in an office to help it succeed so that they would have a fucking stake in it. And then when you get older, you wrestle the big shows. You don't go to the spot shows. So you cut your schedule back. You still make money because you own part of the company or you're booking or whatever. And you live at home and you work your territory. Yes. Any of these fucking major jobs now with any of these companies, I don't know why anybody fucking wants them. It's goddamn all work. It's tearing your hair out of your fucking head. And ultimately, you're never going to own part of the fucking company unless you marry the right person. And you have to, no matter what major company you work for, you're going to an airport every fucking day. You're not home and watching the fucking 11 o'clock news on TV after a major show where your company may have just made 50 or 60 grand that night. Then the company may have made 50 million that night, but you're still in a fucking hotel at the XL Inn in Minneapolis waiting to get on a fucking plane to go somewhere else the next day. And your check that week is going to be mostly the same. Unless you're one of the non-wrestling people that Vince figured in on this fucking stock scam. So all of the non-wrestling people that have never taken a bump are worth millions. But none of those people could have made a fucking dime if it wasn't for all the wrestlers that took all the bumps and were the product that they sold. So no, I don't know why anybody wants any of those fucking jobs.
But to the second part of the question, how do you think Bruce will do?
Well, he'll do the same. It'll be the same thing as whatever the fuck it would have been. He'll get the heat for it. If, like I said, once again, they can't fire Triple H. So they're putting everybody in fucking spots. I don't know what Bischoff did or didn't do. And I don't know how he could have sucked so bad if he did anything that they fired him in 2 shows on the air and 3 months in the job or whatever. But what the fuck are you supposed to do? What is the job? Working with the network, overseeing SmackDown or Raw. What is either you're writing a fucking show or you're not. Either you're the booker or you're not. So I would never take a job being responsible with my name on. That's why all the problems between me and the WWE office happened in OVW, because in OVW, the people knew I was the matchmaker. My face was on the program. I was the fucking play-by-play announcer of every show, for Christ's sake. They knew it was my hometown, and I was part of OVW along with Danny Davis. And if the shit that we presented sucked, it was my fucking fault, right? Which is why when we started having to present sucky shit or getting runarounds from Laurinaitis on dates we had booked on Talent or whatever the fuck, that was the problem, because it was reflecting on me. Unless Bruce Prichard is going to pick every single piece of talent on that program and then write the format single-handedly and then lay it out to the talent at the taping and then either commentate on it or fucking critique it in the back with the talent when they come back afterwards on whether it sucked or not, then I would never, if you don't have that position, like every other booker did, like I did in OVW or Smoky Mountain, like every other booker in the history of wrestling did on every fucking territory show, then I would never take a job saying I'm responsible for so-and-so. So I don't know how he's going to do, and I don't know what the fuck he's going to do. Because what is the job? Unless you're writing it, laying it out, and fucking critiquing it afterwards, unless you pick the talent and you are the booker, then what would that job be? What is the title? Managing director, supervisor, vice president of fucking Raw and SmackDown or whatever?
Vince's boy, I think is the title.
Well, I don't know. But so I don't know what the fuck.
Did you see the quote in The Observer this week?
Well, which one? He writes 100,000 words a fucking week.
I have it right here. It was noted to us by MLW officials how much more in tune with current wrestling and relating to modern talent that Jim Cornette was than Prichard was when they both performed similar duties in the company.
Well, it's the same thing they told me and same thing some of the guys told me. But it's because I don't even know. I can explain this, but nobody will fucking get it. Like the old Steve Allen line. Do they get your program in Cleveland? Well, they watch it, but I don't know if they get it. Bruce wants to do Vince McMahon style WWF wrestling usually. And that has gone way out of fucking fashion. I want to do shit that is so old it's new again because it's logical pro wrestling, and that works in any era if you find somebody that can fucking do it. So I don't try to go out and tell people to change all their shit. I sit and talk to somebody that I believe has some potential and does some good things and has a good look and is being serious about what they're doing. And I suggest to them things that they can do, whether they are, if they do them already, do more of it. And if they don't do them, do these things. Don't do these other things that detracts from their presentation, and just try to help produce them and coach them a little bit. I can see why people would say that, because good talent is timeless. And the things that you can tell good talent to do to get over is timeless. I don't just do one style of wrestling. No, I just don't do the hokey fucking phony bullshit garbage styles of wrestling. But you can do a variety of styles of wrestling depending on the talent you've got. You don't have to do it just one way. I just like to help people try to figure out ways to get their shit over. Anyway.
All right. Well, another question.
Nice to know that, here's the thing, Dave's shooting himself in the foot. I try to put him over for his opinions, and then he goes crazy with his fucking all elite guys. And then it diminishes it does the same thing they do to the wrestling business. It diminishes the credibility of his opinions, which most of the time are correct and rooted in basic factor logic. When he says crazy, all of a sudden the earth is flat. It hurts his credibility and the people of those of us that try to defend him in some cases.
Our next question, Jim, was sent in on Twitter using the hashtag CornyDriveThru from James Cotto. Tommaso Ciampa is currently my favorite wrestler. In terms of in-ring performance and his skill on the mic, Ciampa is second to none. I'm curious to know, what is your opinion of Ciampa compared to other current WWE, AEW, and NWA stars?
Blah, blah, blah. When was this question sent in?
October 17th.
What is this young man's name?
James Cotto.
James, you're not keeping up with the experience. We've talked about Tommaso the last couple of weeks. I told a rather interesting and pithy anecdote, an amusing anecdote about Tommaso and Delirious and I in New York on last week's experience. No, he's great. Just the fact that he's a physical freak, that he's come back after these surgeries. We've talked about that on the experience in depth. He looks fantastic. He's ripped. He's fucking obsessive with his training. His look is great with the beard and the bald head. You don't mistake him for, a lot of times these guys are in the ring now. They're all the same age. They all have the same look. We mentioned that on NXT this past week. There was a tag match where 3 of the 4 guys in the tag match were wearing short black trunks, black knee pads, and were bald-headed. But Tommaso looks completely different. His work is exceptional, and his gimmick, his promos are different and a different style, and you can tell there's something different going on with him. He's a unique personality. We need a bunch more of that. So yes, I love Tommaso, especially because of his difference. And you don't get the idea, at least what I haven't watched, NXT religiously or even atheistically, but I've seen him in Ring of Honor. I've seen a number of his stuff in NXT, and he's never silly or goofy or winking at people or giving you the impression that he is in any way other than real. And I think that's what works for him too.
As soon as this show comes out, someone's going to find a video of him.
Somebody's
Joey Ryan's dick.
Grabbing Joey Ryan's dick with an invisible hand grenade
ass or something.
Yeah. But I mean, that's why I am so judicious with my compliments these days, because you never know when it's going to come back and bite you in the ass. And I like somebody and here's a bunch of tomfoolery they were doing. But, as it stands, as Tommaso Ciampa is being presented in NXT, I'm a fan. How about that?
Who's going to be the first guy to come out and say he was blackballed because he wouldn't put up with this shit? Joey Ryan and his Southern California clique wouldn't book me on their shows because I wouldn't touch his dick. Or they wouldn't use me on Pro Wrestling Guerrilla despite the fact I was really good because I wouldn't stick my thumb up another guy's ass into a train around the ring. And
well, what difference would it make if they said that? Because all the fans would go, well, see, you didn't want to play along, so you couldn't play. You didn't want to play with others, so you didn't want to share your toys, so you couldn't play in our little games. The fans of that shit would not. Anybody that wants to or fucking suffers through watch a bunch of fucking grown men take bumps for invisible hand grenades and all this PWG bullshit. And as they have the greatest matches on the planet. Well, if they did, then they'd be called the WWE and they'd be working Madison Square Garden. And fucking the other guys would be in the fucking bingo hall or wherever the fuck it is. Oh, I just did a dated reference. I'm sorry, it's not a bingo hall. That was ECW. What hall did they used to work in till they ran them off of that out in PWG? Was it a VFW hall or an Elks Lodge, I think?
One of those, VFW.
The elks are huge out in California. Elks, moose, geese, all kinds of fucking wildlife. Huge out there. They got lodges every place. But it just fucking stupid. It's a bunch of goddamn guys that are marks for themselves and for exposing the business to the utmost degree so that the fucking 400 people that they cram in the barn can rave over them and appreciate them for what they are rather than what they really are, which is guys that wouldn't draw fucking 15 cents in major companies because all they do is go out and choreograph their fucking routines for their fucking spots and their athleticism and forget that they look ridiculous. They can't talk. They have a haircut like Chuck Taylor and that hatchet fucking face. He looks like the guy under the fucking car when you pull into Valvoline and get your oil changed. He's not even the guy that greets you up on the fucking human level. He's the pit dweller that gets fucking oil drained on him. That's what he looks like.
The human level.
They up with us, surface dwellers instead of the fucking people they keep in the oil pit. And that's but seriously, it's all of them. You're bland, you're boring, you're physically unimpressive, you're not physically intimidating, you don't have an interesting personality, you can't cut a promo. There's all kinds of ways to describe the indie outlaw mud show mindset that determines we're just going to do as much choreographed horse shit as we can because we're gymnastic athletes, but we have no other fucking positive feature. Or since we're not even athletes, we're fat fucks with tattoos and fucking metal shit hanging out of our face. We're just going to slice each other up with light tubes and barbed wire because we're even more pathetic than the fucking cosplay wrestlers that needily want some adulation from their 400 people in a fucking barn. None of these people would have been accepted, nor would they have wanted to be involved in wrestling, nor would any wrestling fans or personnel have wanted them to be involved in the territory days because it would have been fucking ridiculous. And it's just unfortunate that now, through lack of any regulation whatsoever, we have to put up with this shit. But I'm sorry. That's basically the whole fucking mindset of a lot of let's draw 400 people that'll chant "Fight Forever" and "This is awesome," and ignore what wrestling is supposed to be, so that when the people who really have talent try to do that, it is diminished because everybody can fucking play. We seem to be getting a common theme here today.
We certainly do. We have a question here sent in to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Charlie in Starkville, Mississippi. And a couple of people sent this in, so this is another popular theme. Bret Hart recently opened up about how Sean Waltman and Scott Hall asked him in the mid-90s during a European tour to be the head of the Kliq, but he turned them down. Sean Waltman confirmed the story and went on to say he doesn't think Shawn Michaels knew about it because he wasn't on the same tour. What are your thoughts on Waltman and Hall trying to bring Bret Hart into the Kliq? And how do you think the business would have changed if Bret would have said yes?
Now I've just finished ranting and raving about how everybody in the modern wrestling business has lost their mind. And now here was guys from 25 years ago, major talents, telling stories, talking about whether one guy knew that a couple of his friends had invited a guy that he didn't like to be the leader of their fucking Kliq so they could ride together. What the fuck? That would be like, oh my God. Eaton and Condrey and Cornette have kicked Tommy Young out of their car and brought in Buddy Landel. What a scandal.
Well, no, I think I was looking at it a little bit differently. So let me tell you how I was looking at it. Maybe you'll see it differently. More like if we have Bret on our side too, we have more power with Vince.
Well, yeah, but the whole thing was so fucking stupid. The fact that Vince let his fucking major stars that he was paying hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to act like a bunch of fucking kids in their fucking boys club treehouse, have this fucking Kliq nonsense. And the fact that they would want to recruit people not only to be in their social group, which would give them standing, but also would give them power in the locker room. But the first thing Ole Anderson would have just fixed that. He'd have fired all 4 of them or 5 of them or however many it was. That way they'd had no power in the locker room. And who gives a fuck what they do somewhere else because they're a pain in the ass here. It would have not been, as I've talked about, put up with in previous fucking generations unless one or more of those people in the Kliq owned a piece of the fucking company. I've never seen talent allowed to just run roughshod. And the idea that they were asking, hey, Bret, would you come over and be the leader of our Kliq? It's so fucking Oh my God.
Well, I'm sure it wasn't put that way, but yeah.
Well, but what, and Bret, I'm pretty sure, I can't remember. I read his book, but it is 1,700 pages, so I can't remember. But I think he turned them down because he didn't want to hang out with them, didn't he? Most of them.
I don't remember.
I don't know. But just, fuck, my God. Some things, I guess, are always childish.
Beyond the Kliq, what group of guys, what other actual Kliq caused the most damage or tried to cause? I mean, Buddy Rogers had his Kliq, and there was always the threat that he could cause some problems for the promoter. But I mean, what other Kliq in wrestling history can you think of that really was a troublemaking bunch?
Well, see, I was not in each territory, especially in the 60s and 70s, behind the scenes. I'm sure there was, issues between the Lynn Rossi side and the Jackie Fargo side in Nashville. For Nick Goulas and Roy Welch. Everybody's had issues, but most of the time, instead of even, they were never called cliques before, but groups formed based on guys that drew a lot of money that liked to work together, but their power was mitigated somewhat by the fact that the promoter and or the booker was always in charge. Buddy Rogers got more pull than anybody because he was the biggest box office attraction in the country, and he had guys that he liked to work with that were also accomplished, and he drew money with, and he would try to get enough of his crew into a territory that he would have say. I don't know. He probably booked a few places, but I don't know if he was probably more like a Flair that had pull without actually being the booker in most of the places at Rogers because he would have had the time. Yeah. But that's not unusual. Bookers always had a crew of guys that they liked and would put up with more bullshit from than most other promoters. Ole always had his favorites, and Jerry Jarrett would have his favorites, and I'm sure Dusty had his favorite, Manny Fernandez. But it wasn't a distraction from business to anywhere near the degree it was with this group in the 90s in the WWF because they'd never got that far. And it was just ridiculous. And also, I mean, the guys in those days, they weren't, how can I say this and people will understand it? It wasn't over silly foolishness. It was just keeping people out of their spot, but they still went out and had good matches and didn't expose the business if they wanted to and bury shit. And bury people that they were expected to try to half-ass draw money with. It was just, irresponsible and unprofessional. Most of the guys in the old days that got in a position where they could fuck other people only did it for professional reasons, not personal.
Our next,
it's actually, isn't it better to be fucked for professional reasons than personal reasons?
Better? I guess so. I guess you look at it that way.
Even more understandable or more palatable.
I mean, I always think revenge is in order no matter what. But
well, yes, but at least you can kind of at least tip the hat a little bit. Well, he fucked me because he made a lot of money on it. Not he fucked me just because he's an asshole.
Yeah, I guess it is better. Well, let's see if this next one's better. Our next question,
any better? Yes,
was sent in to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Vince Parham in Atlanta, Georgia. Who was the first person in professional wrestling to refer to you as corny? Was it something you asked people to call you? Or did it just pop up and stick? I ask this because I can't get everyone knows it's corny out of my head.
It was probably Bobby Eaton. I'm trying to think because as a matter of fact, I'm almost sure it was Bobby Eaton. And then Stan, because Stan liked to do that, picked up on it, and he would change it around a little bit. Cornelius. So for a while, I was Cornelius to Stan and Corny to Bobby. But then Stan even lengthened it to Cornelius J. Corny when he would refer to me with my full given name. And then JR was around us, so I started picking that up, and then there you go. But Bobby Eaton, I believe, in the car, somewhere between here and there.
Have you ever gotten mad because someone who you didn't think earned the right to call you corny called you corny?
Not that I can think of, because I'm so used to it in a lot of cases that it doesn't even really register anymore. But now Bobby doesn't even call me corny anymore. He shortened it. He has more affection. He just calls me corn. Because that way, because that was corny was his pet name, his term of endearment. But now that everybody's,
well, you're older now.
Yeah, I'm older now, so now I'm just corn.
All right. Well, hey. Next question, Jim, was sent in to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Daniel L. in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. There was an interesting development over the summer in regards to AEW's women's roster. Kylie Rae, who worked in the four-way match at Double or Nothing, abruptly left AEW in August. She was one of the showcase stars for the division, and the rumor at the time was that she was leaving the wrestling business. Tony Khan at the time said it was an amicable separation, leading to more credence that Kylie's stepping away or even retiring from the business. However, last month, she reappeared and is continuing to wrestle. This was all very strange to me and a lot of fans. Then, in a previous Experience episode, you mentioned your belief that Riho, an employee of AEW and the new AEW Women's Champion, and Kenny Olivier, Executive Vice President of AEW and performer, were fucking. Now, I don't know or can't say why decisions were made and how, but if an AEW employee felt they were being discriminated at work because they weren't fucking the executive VP, could you recommend any recourse they could take? Wow.
Well, they could call Stephen P. New, but I'm not sure where all this. I've never met Kylie Rae. I don't remember what Kylie Rae looks like. And here's a news flash: a woman changed her mind. I don't have any idea of why she wanted to quit the business or why she got back into business or why she didn't want to be in AEW or why she wants to be wherever the fuck she is now. However, in Riho's case with Kenny Olivier, while I also have no firsthand knowledge of this, I was trying to search in my mind for any reason why it could possibly be a thing that they are booking a 98-pound Japanese schoolgirl to not only be their women's world champion, a schoolgirl, by the way, that no one has ever fucking heard of before, to be their women's champion and beating recognized stars and or giant women that they want to push. Otherwise, then she's fucking Olivier. Because that's the only thing that makes sense. But since they have done other things that make even less sense than that, maybe he's not fucking her. Maybe they're just all fucking crazy. So
maybe they're
all
fucking each other.
Maybe they're all fucking each other. They are, and I guarantee you they're all fucking Tony Khan. I mean, we have no reasons but nepotism and insanity why these people should have jobs. That's what caused this calamity.
All right. Well, here's a funny question. I can't believe this is being sent to you, so I'm going to read it. This was sent in to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Mark in Dryden. Actually, it was sent in on Twitter using the hashtag CornyDriveThru.
Okay, now you changed your story.
I did because I realized what I said.
All right.
Have either you or Jim ever seen the It's Real to Me, Damn It video from years ago? If so, at conventions are fans like him commonplace? And your opinions on him and the video itself? Thanks.
One of our new listeners, obviously. You don't know David Wills, young David Wills. I did not know David at the time. I see David all the time. He was just at the NWA Power tapings, but he was at that. It was a Q&A before an event that we did in Spartanburg, South Carolina, probably in 2006, I think. And it was me and Bobby Eaton and Dennis Condrey and Stan Lane and Terry Funk doing a Q&A in the ring before they set up for the show that night. And they shot it kind of the shits for it to get national exposure because all the people were on one side of the bleachers and we were facing them for the Q&As. And they shot us and we've got empty bleachers. So it looks like we're just in an empty gym in a ring with no ropes on it. So that was bad enough. But anyway, David Wills, who we didn't know at the time, was asking a question. And he got all broken up and got emotional because, as he told me later on, he said he saw Terry Funk sitting there, and Terry's knees are bad at that point in time. You could tell the way he was walking and etc. And he just, all of the sacrifices that those guys had made to try to protect the business, to protect each other, to fucking, be serious about their craft, all the things, the lost arts that nobody does today. And he got emotional. He said, I'm sorry, but it's still real to me, damn it. Meaning from when he was a kid. And it just went viral. But David, and by the way, David is looking very svelte these days. He's lost a tremendous amount of weight. Look, I think he almost has abs now.
Obviously, it became a meme. It became a video that people passed around.
Dennis Condrey was looking around for a bottle or something to grab in case that David went off and just, No,
but in the moment, in the room, did it stand out as a special moment to you?
Well, yeah, because actually people, the other fans, some applauded and everything, and they were like, yeah, ribbit, and it was, because he was emotional about it. And it was kind of a nice moment, but we get those at the fan fest and everything where people get emotional and decry what has become of what they used to love so much and used to go to with their families or their parents or their brothers, significant others, whatever. And that it's all gone away, and then now it's so different, and it's just treated like a punchline and a joke, and they get sentimental. That one was viral, but it's not that unusual.
Our next question, Jim, was, I'm going to do another one from Charlie in Starkville, Mississippi.
Oh, just because you like Charlie. Are you on Charlie's payroll?
Let me tell you, Charlie sends in well-written questions, and usually it's something that a lot of other people are asking, and he asks it a little better than other people. So let me ask you.
So just put Charlie over it, but you're not taking any bribes at all. But Charlie's just great, and he's brilliant, and he does so much better than all these other people that don't pay you money.
Well, maybe he's paying you money, because I didn't say any of those things. But anyway. Here's his question. I don't know if you've seen this, Jim, but it's been a little bit of a controversy in wrestling. What do you think about the Shorty G Chad Gable gimmick? It was bad enough when they cut off his hair, but is it ever a good idea to point out that a wrestler is short? I grew up 3 hours from Memphis, and I couldn't imagine watching Bill Dundee when I was a kid, and Lance Russell referred to him as Shorty D.
No, the only ones who were allowed to do that was fucking Lawler, and who would just brutalize him. But then that would get sympathy for Bill Dundee because he was the babyface. But I don't. Well, first of all, Chad Gable was the guy that I really liked. He was tag team partners with Rude, right?
He was tag team partners with Rude originally. He was part of American Alpha with Jason Jordan. And then great.
Yes, and they were great. They had the great matches with the Revival. He was the one with the long hair and looked like a rock star, right?
Great look, and he had only been wrestling a short period of time and showed incredible potential and incredible growth in a short period of time, yeah.
And then they made him cut his hair off, and he looked like a goof. Like and now they're calling him Shorty and making fun of his height. Is basically what they're doing.
Can you tell which show Vince has his hands on more than the other one?
Once again, quit. Get out of there. Before they finish you off. Get some type of injury, make them forget about you, and then go be a star somewhere else as soon as you can get free. Because it's too late. It ain't going to ever happen now. If it was going to happen, it would have happened. It ain't never going to happen. Chad, get the flock out of Dodge. It's fucking ridiculous.
It has to be so frustrating to be the guy.
That is one thing. That would be where, I would be screaming. If I was there, I'd be screaming, what the fuck are you doing to this guy? And that would be Bruce's cue to say, well, he doesn't have any personality. Well, fuck, then let's find him some or stick him with somebody that's got some or do something else instead of burying a fucking guy. Or just wait till he gets some personality because he's not embarrassed and ashamed about what he's doing every time he walks out the fucking curtain.
It is an interesting dichotomy. AEW has Marko Stunt, who's 5'2", and they're putting him out there and treating him like he's as credible as any wrestler. And the WWE has a world-class wrestler. This guy's great, and Chad Gable.
And a legitimate shooter.
And pointing out how short he is and just destroying the guy. It's incredible. That's a guy who I wish was I mean, I hate to say in AEW because of, last week's television show, but I just wish was out of there and wrestling on the indie scene or wrestling in Japan.
But I mean, it's nothing new because OVW was filled with Shorty Gables, great young performers that you could mold and build and do things with. And every time, horrible gimmicks. Mike Mondo, Johnny Jeter, Mark Magnus, fucking the Bashams. On, and Nick Dinsmore.
Did anyone say no? Did anyone ever say no?
Elijah Burke said no. I will bow out of being in the Spirit Squad, and actually got half of a career out of that because he didn't go down with the entire Spirit Squad ship like everybody else did, and was able to be a single for a while and then be the Pope and all the other things he did, rather than just fucking slinking off and quitting the business.
All right.
So, but it's hard to say no in those positions because, hey, these people are supposed to know more than you, even though that's another reason why there was heat with me in OVW, because I was, among other things, teaching the wrestlers not only how to wrestle, but how that no, they don't know more than you do. They're possibly going to give you a stupid gimmick and you better be ready for it. And here's some tricks to try to get out of shit, and because you had to, because I wasn't going to lie to these guys and say, oh, they're going to fucking bring you up and they're going to make you a fortune and they know more than we do. They're so wise and they're going to treat you great. No, I got emotionally invested in teaching these guys how to be great wrestlers and how to do it themselves and get themselves over. And part of that was teaching them how to recognize when the office or whoever the fuck was giving him a bad gimmick or telling him to do stupid shit or what stupid shit was, so at least they'd recognize it. Then I'd say, now you work for them, so you're going to have to do this unless you just say no and quit, but be aware that it's fucking goofy. And maybe you won't get as much on you if you mitigate the goofiness by doing shit like this, this, and this. The office didn't like that either. But otherwise I would have had to have lied to guys and say, oh, it's going to be great. They're going to give you wonderful gimmicks and they're going to bring you right along and everything's going to be rosy. No, this is when they were doing a lot of stupid shit with our guys, putting a mask on Matt Morgan.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. And then making him stutter.
Yeah. The one guy, a 7-foot guy who could talk.
Yes. And leapfrog and drop kick. So I had to tell the guys as part of their training, all the shit they do up there is fucked up, and here's why. And here's why it doesn't make any sense. But try to learn to get along in it. I wasn't telling them to go out there and go into business for themselves, but I was telling them that there are a lot of fucking people in the WWE, these comedy writers and people from television that don't know anything about wrestling and have no idea what they're fucking doing. And that's why you see this stupid shit on Raw every week. And that's why your brethren get brought up and be given stupid gimmicks because they don't know anything about wrestling, which means that you guys need to know even more about wrestling to counteract that. The WWF did not like that line of education. But what else was I going to do? What else can you do? You can't lie to people when they're in a wrestling training school because you're teaching them to work. You're teaching them to lie. So you can't lie to them about how to lie.
Well, that's the problem. There's a lot of people who are very willing to lie in the wrestling business.
The people in the business need to be smart to the business. The people outside the business shouldn't be smart to the business. It worked just fine that way for 100 years. But suddenly, when the wrestling locker room inside the business was filled up with people that had never been smartened up, then they think all this shit's the way it's supposed to be. That's another problem. That's why all the OVW guys at least were smart to the fucking business.
Well, Jim, I think this may be our last question this week.
Well, I hope so.
Hey, you may like this one. This one was sent in on Twitter.
You ticked me off this week.
This was sent in on Twitter using the hashtag CornyDriveThru from Peter D. Hi, Jim. Ricky and Robert was such a great tag team. Ricky sold so much. Was Robert the weak link in the team? Everyone talks about Ricky as a great face, but Robert gets little talk. What are your thoughts on Robert Gibson?
Well, no, he was not a weak link by any stretch of the imagination. And see, that's the thing. It's when you are next to somebody that is the best in the world at what they do, even if you're fantastic, you don't look as good, right? And so, who knows? Keith Richards may have been the fucking head of the Rolling Stones if it hadn't been for Mick Jagger. But that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with him. Robert, especially in his younger days, he had back problems. After the Smoky Mountain run, he started having some problems. He took a lot of stuff out of his repertoire. But especially in his younger days, was one of the best baby faces in the ring in the business. It's just that Ricky was just not only the face, not only the sympathetic face, but the smaller guy and just the selling wizard. That it was natural to get the heat on him to give Robert the tag because Robert was the bigger guy, had a whirlwind comeback through the drop kicks, flying head scissors, whatever. So, that was the natural role they fell into. A lot of times we had so many matches with him, we switched it up and we get the heat on Robert so that Ricky could get the hot tag. And Ricky had a great comeback too, and Robert sold just great, but it just didn't seem to click like it did the other way around. So especially because, even though the first of the matches was rock and roll shining and doing their double team moves and et cetera, and their finish was the double drop kick, most people remember seeing Ricky Morton in the ring for a longer extended period of time because that's usually when we were beating him up. So, it got to that point where it's like, well, Robert just holding the ring post up, right? But no, he was an important, and it was a team. And it was the way that they looked together. And it was the way that they each did the thing that they each did. So, no, he wasn't a weak link because who else would have been the guy in the corner? When you think about it, who else is going to overshadow Ricky Morton in any way? Is anybody going to outsell Ricky Morton? No. So does it need to be a bigger guy? So when he gets the hot tag, there's the big cleanup guy. Well, then they wouldn't have been the teeny bopper heroes of the guy's 6'6" and 250. He didn't look like Sean Cassidy or fucking David Cassidy or goddamn Leif Garrett or any of the other teeny bopper idols. They were cute and cuddly, but they were still big enough to be visually acceptable. Robert's 6'2" and 220 or whatever. So I don't see who else it would have been.
All right. Well, with that, the drive-thru has closed, and we have a couple submissions for our song contest. Although
thank God, because I just don't know if I can wait any longer to hear everyone knows it's corny. Because that will cheer me up today after you've brought me down and got me grumpy and cranky.
Me?
You did.
The listeners. The listeners sent in the questions.
Well, you were bribed on a couple of them, but
you guys know how to get a hold of us on Twitter at the Jim Cornette. You can find me on Twitter at Great Brian Last. You can hear me on the 605 Superpodcast at 605pod.com or available wherever it is that you find your favorite podcast. Don't forget, the Jim Cornette Experience debuts each and every Thursday, but it's available whenever you'd like to hear it, wherever it is that you find your favorite podcast. And of course, on the official Jim Cornette YouTube channel, tinyurl.com/official corny YouTube. See full shows, clips of shows, as well as the omnibus collections and the archive available right now on the Arcadian Vanguard video page. Of course, when it comes to the world of Jim Cornette, you have to go to Cornette's Collectibles at jimcornette.com. where there's always something that will cause him to complain about how much work he has to do to package the things and get the things to the post office and ship them out.
But I do it because I love you people.
But he loves you people.
I love you. And I need money.
What love are you sharing today, Jim?
Well, I mentioned it at the first of the program, Houston's Wrestling Spectacular, the classic DVD. People are still amazed to learn that they can not only get autographed color 8x10s, but autographed Cult of Cornette membership certificates on heavy cardstock, by the way, for only $10 each. That's because I want to make these things accessible for the entire population and so much more. As a matter of fact, don't advertise this stuff because it's very exclusive. We don't advertise. We have too much business.
All right, so don't go there, and we'll tell you more about that this Thursday on The Experience. But until then.
And by the way, also, we're thinking about coming out with this new product that I've just been sent on Twitter, Riho, the 93-pound Japanese schoolgirl fetish brand cough drops. It's a talent suppressant and a deep throat omega relief, naturally soothing relief that lasts. Riho. It's Kenny Olivier approved.
All right. Well, on that note, for Jim Cornette, I'm the great Brian Last. Tally ho!